I have this
Great story for the buyer.
I hope the seller sees this someday. Part of me was like, oh, I wonder if I could just how I like to screenshot stuff and just send it on over to them.
Do you know who the seller is?
No, I just know it's like north. Every single one of these stories so far has been like Northeast Florida.
That's what you said.
I don't know what's happening.
These are tough markets, though.
Welcome to the Real Estate Replay, highlights and consumer stories in real estate that the industry doesn't want you to hear. Host Wendy Gilch and Lindy Chapman are breaking down the good, the bad, the unethical, and sometimes illegal stories of recent home sellers and buyers. Learn what they did right, what they did wrong, and what they wish they would have done differently. It's the only real estate podcast that tells you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about the industry. All right, so this story came from a real estate subgroup, and it's a 26-year-old single female who purchased a home going through the listing agent, but there's plenty to it. So it says that she bought the house. It was listed at $229, ranch style, about 10 minutes from her job. The owner only wanted showings done from 1 to 5 on Sunday. And when she called the listing agent, she mistook me for another realtor and just gave me the code to come see the house by myself. She goes on to say how her dad was an inspector, and on a whim, she felt kind of weird, but they ended up going to look at it. They really liked it. The house had a brand new roof. It was perfect for her. It was in Florida too, so it was set up perfectly for that weather, totally updated. And so she wanted to make an offer. She had a friend who was a realtor, but he hadn't been very helpful. So she called the listing agent and asked her to be her agent as well. She said her tone changed completely when she saw those dollar signs of double commission and told me exactly what to do to get the house. Put $10K in escrow, offer over asking, ended up doing $8K over at $237. Most importantly, she told me to set the contract to expire at 8 a.m. on Monday. So she put this offer in on Sunday afternoon, evening, and said it expired Monday, next day at 8 a.m. She found out her offer was accepted, and she was one of 5 parties to view the house. She went on to say that she's really glad that the listing agent told her all this stuff, because had the house been on the market any longer, it certainly would have gone for way more over asking and been much more offers. So, as a seller, if your listing agent, well, I should backtrack. So, did the seller get the best deal, in your opinion, in this scenario?
I mean, obviously not, especially if the buyer feels like they got it at a bargain to set that expiration date early in order to get back into the commissions.
Right.
Definitely didn't. And here's the thing, the seller has paid for her to represent her.
Right.
This is one of the problems with exclusive listings. It sounds great to be part of one of these big brokerages and have that exclusive listing where we've got hundreds of buyers and we can possibly find the buyer before we go on the market. And maybe my house is 500 and maybe they bring me 525, but I don't understand, especially in Texas, it's a non-disclosure state, that homes in my neighborhood are getting 600, not 525 or 550, and that's $20,000, $50,000, right? There's some people that don't care because time is money. They don't want people traipsing through their house, and that can be an option as long as it's transparent. But wow, for somebody like that could be leaving $10,000 on the table, which is significant in that price point.
Right.
That's huge. And that's the problem. And in this case, it worked out really well for the buyer. I've actually worked with buyers this way before, to be a consultant when they were working with the listing agent and to make sure the price they were paying was correct. And that they were getting represented and that they weren't overpaying or not being represented on repairs and stuff. But it's very hard, how you say you can't serve two masters. Right. It's very hard to be neutral in that, or to represent the best interest of your client, which in that case is always the seller, because the seller is paying the buyer's agent's fee.
Right. She went on to say the house appraised at $245.
Yeah. So she got it at $237.
$237. It was listed at what, $229.
Yeah. And in this market, people are paying over what the appraisals come in, or right at it. So again, great for the buyer.
Right.
Know what,
Right.
and it just goes back to that, know what you don't know. But this is why we're telling these stories.
Right.
People
Right.
have to know these things,
Right.
and the industry needs to hear it.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Hey, to go back to that beginning though, can an agent give a consumer the lock key box code to let them just
That's an interesting thing, because Open Door and some other companies like that do have, if the house is vacant, they will have a code and you log in and it's registered, and they have cameras. They know when you come and go. So I guess technically the real estate boards have made concessions for that. You would have to have permission of the seller. It depends on, I don't know the situation of this home, but
Right.
typically, no, I would never do that as an agent. There's too much liability. If the home is still owned by the seller, too much liability. There's no way to, I don't have the technology set up to track that, to make sure they've locked the door behind them.
Right.
So that sounds like in this case, if it was an individual agent and a traditional brokerage that, with maybe a lockbox or something, that that was an oversight on her part, assuming that this was an agent rather than a consumer, which I'm not really sure why they would assume that. But
right.
Yeah.
A part of my little skeptical brain is like, I wonder if she realized she messed up giving that girl the code and then like wanted to make sure that it worked out in her favor. But
yeah, the other interesting part about that is that she had a friend that was a realtor that was helping her. And then she said he wasn't helpful. And he, but here's the challenge with it. Maybe he'd spent 10, 15, 20 hours helping her, but he didn't get paid.
Right.
But then again, if she had continued with him, would she have gotten the house, would have been her disservice. And so this is where this industry right now, it's not good for the agents. It's not good for the consumers, unless you really know the questions to ask to navigate it successfully.
So if you are selling your home and your agent, I'm assuming they have to disclose to you if they're going to represent both sides. Like, I'm sure you have to sign something, correct? If
you do. So what I would recommend to anybody doing this would be to, if you bring here's what I'm paying you on the listing side. I'm offering 3%, 2.5%, whatever, to the buyer side. But if you bring the buyer, if you find the buyer calls you, I'm only going to pay you X. And it's not going to be exponentially more, because I want this to be a fair transaction. I want you to get paid what you're worth as my agent. Let's make it a win-win. And I mean, that's what I always did. I worked for a broker, though, that really allowed me to kind of make things up as I went, because I was finding buyers for my listings. And I was able to be fair if I was only going to make a max of 3%. Right. And I always thought the deal was a whole lot easier to work out, because I would sit down Mr. Smith on one side of the table and, Mrs. Jones on the other side of the table. And we would talk about, what do you want? What do you want? Let's make it done. I'm getting paid the same thing. Was it a little bit more work? Yes. And maybe I would throw in, instead of listing it at 3%, it would be 4% to me, but it's still saving that seller money. Right. We're creating a win-win. Maybe we're using that savings for the repairs, so that the market's different right now. So it's a little more challenging, but I think it's knowing what to ask for as the seller. It's your house, it's your investment. And I think that's a big challenge with the industry too, right? We talk about selling houses. Well, these aren't things that we've made. They're not things that we've created. They're not things that we own. Right. We are just we're just a portal. Right. And I think agents have, kind of lost track of what our value is in this new economy. Right. Because our value prop is changing.
Part of me wonders, I wonder if the seller were to read this, what they would think. I don't know, just curious if they would be cool with it, or if they'd realize they lost out on money.
I would be cool with it if I lost out on $10,000 right.
I wonder if she changed her commission too.
Yeah.
Oh, that interesting story. Okay.
And typically they don't, because if I've listed the house at 6% or 5%, that is the listing price that seller has agreed to pay. It goes to the listing brokerage, and then that listing brokerage pays the buyer's agent. Right. So even if the client comes in and says, I'm not working with an agent, right, that doesn't mean that they're not taking the agent fee. You're not saving any money. Right. Again, unless you know the questions to ask.
Right. Which is really good. So, and I see this on one of the subgroups a lot, where they say, skip the agent, tell the listing agent to give that 2.5% back to the seller. or to give it to yourself. But
that could be a very strategic way to buy a house. I mean, this is where I'm struggling right now in representing buyers and I just did this on a again, I may get blackballed here. I just did this on an offer where I offered 1% back. And I told her, I said, I don't care if the seller takes it, if you take it or whatever, but a lot of the houses I showed this week were just 2.5% to the buyer's agent. You're at 3%. If you've got 2 offers at 525 and yet the seller's going to have to pay me a little bit more, I wanted my offer to be a little bit more attractive. If you were the buyer, you could absolutely, if you're not working with an agent, you could do that. You could come to your agent and say, I found the house. You've not shown me houses. This is the first time we've seen them. Mm-hmm. Will you use your commission as a bargaining tool?
Right.
Again, I could get saying that, but I mean, in this market, when it's so hard to get a house, we're really kind of standing in the way, right?
Right.
Because that's an extra on a $500,000 home. That's an extra $15,000 the seller is paying. So if I could say, hey, you've got offers at 550 because things are going at 50 over, but I'm not using an agent. I'll pay 550,
right?
But I don't have an agent. And again, it's going to be a little challenging depending on the brokerage.
Right.
And it's not always going to work. That's not always going to be in your best interest.
Right.
I've seen homes that have been 550 and they were overpriced. They fall through. You have nobody protecting you at that point.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely risky.
That's where you call me. I'm a consultant. I come up with a flat fee and we walk you through it and give you different options. But yeah, it's just tricky right now. It's just tricky.
Right. Okay. Anything else on this lovely story? I have this
great story for the buyer.
I hope the seller sees this someday. Part of me was like, I wonder if I could just how I like to screenshot stuff and just send it on over to them.
Do you know who the seller is?
No, I just know it's like north. Every single one of these stories so far has been like Northeast Florida.
That's what you said.
I don't know what's happening.
These are tough markets though. That's a tough market. There's a lot going on there and there's a lot more agents than there are houses for sale.
Right. Want to share your experience with us? Drop by therealestatereplay.com and submit your story or even ask us a question.